Hello everybody and welcome to another Uniko video with me, Bev, the owner and designer of all things Uniko. Welcome to day 4 of the August 2025 product introductions. Today we are introducing another background block to the background block series. You know I love these blocks of yummy pattern and focal points, and just I love them. They're super versatile, and today's one is Swiss dots. Now I have got a dot one which is called scattered polka dots, and they're a lot larger. These are tiny dots in a uniform pattern, and much like the pinstripe stamps that I've got, this is just a super handy staple to have in your stash. Just grab the few cards that I made and shared on the blog today. So the first card was this one. I'll just lift it up and just change the position. It's quite subtle on here. I did some tone and tone stamping. It's sort of a corally pink card. And I used Catherine Pooler Coral Cabana ink. So it's quite subtle, but it's really effective. And then I've used these arch die. They're from Spellbinders. They're these ones, Essential Arches. I really like them, and it's a really good pack. You get 16 different sizes of arch, and I just really like that shape at the minute. And I just chose one of the flowers from the Picked Posies layering stencil to stencil over it, and then the sentiment was from Everyday Spring Sentiments. I tried to cover a little bit where I hadn't quite masked off, and I got a tiny bit of green. You can actually watch me make this card as a YouTube short. It's over on the shorts section. I went so floral for this introduction on the blog today. I dusted off Beautiful Blooms 2. Did this fun sort of angle stamping of the Swiss dots, which adds some interest. The points kind of meet in the middle here behind the flower, and I added a sentiment from Bauhaus blocks as it was still on my desk, so it was nice to dust that flower off. And then I haven't used organic bloom since it came out, maybe a couple of times, but I feel I'd neglected it a bit, so I went for a landscape card, turned my block on the landscape, stamped it in Dove ink, just as a nice backdrop for this flower, which I simply coloured with Stampin' Blends, nothing too complicated. So I'm going to show you this stamp in action, but first of all I'm hoping this isn't too glary because it's still in the pack. It was back at the beginning of July, I saw one of the brand ambassador alumni share a card where they'd stenciled or stamped on this Tailored Expressions perforated paper. So it's really smooth, and it is just like cross stitch material, but obviously it's cardstock. It wasn't cheap for a pack, obviously, because it's imported from the US, but I haven't been brave enough yet to use any, to cut into it yet, but I will get round to it. So I thought with this polka dot stamp I would try and sort of recreate that perforated look and see how we get on. So I've put my stamp on my block. I've chosen my colours. Yes, I've just standard 3 favourites for the flowers, and obviously I'm chosen a pebble. So it's not quite a grey, it's not quite a beige, it's sort of in between. I'm hoping that will be light enough, and I'm going to use the layering Pictposy stencil to go over the top, and we'll see how it turns out. So I haven't practiced this is a total experiment, so we'll see how it goes. So I've gone ahead and I've trimmed my card. So we're going to obviously do the stamping first. I'm just using this removable adhesive to keep my cardstock in place. So this panel is 9 by 13 centimeters, and I'm just gonna apply the ink to my block. I might actually stand up for this little bit of stamping, just so I can see where I am going. And I'm just going to let it overhang slightly and then fill in the space, so it'll create this lovely dotty pattern. And you can change the sort of like shape of these background blocks by stamping them on die cuts or masking off areas, all sorts of different things. But I just find them really versatile and useful. So I'm just sort of lining up. I really had to sort of like look the other side of the camera. The gap maybe there was a little bit too big, but I'm not too worried because I am going to stencil over the top, so hopefully it shouldn't be too noticeable. But if you wanted it to be a little bit more precise, you could use your stamping platform. But I suppose I'm being a little bit lazier and just using my acrylic block here, just for ease. That one came out a little bit better, but as I say, once you filled a larger space, because there's so many dots, you can't really see the tiny imperfections. Well, I don't think you can anyway. So I'm going in to this corner just to fill the space. And there we have our dotty perforated background. So I'll bring the cardstock back in just so you can have a little look. Obviously the dots are a lot closer together on the perforated card, and obviously they are showing up black because of obviously they're showing up dark because of the card that's behind in the sheets in the packet. So I'm just grabbing my magnetic board for the next bit, and I'm going to place this on the board, and then we'll start with the stenciling. So I'm going to go for a landscape card again. It's not usually my favoured shape of card, but I quite enjoyed a card I did using the stencil on this sort of landscape layout I did a while ago. So I thought I'd do it again, and we'll see how it comes out. So I'm just placing that there. I am going to just use I might not be able to see it, but just sort of draw an arrow. So that's where I know my corner is. Oops. Obviously you could use stencil placement corners if you have them. I'm just going to stick to one colour of flowers, so go for this lovely honeysuckle pink, and we'll just go over the top and we'll see what the effect is like. As I say, I haven't done this before, so it's a total experiment as to how it will look. Could have even probably gone with an even lighter shade of ink for the polka dots maybe. We'll see. So I'm going in quite heavy with the ink at the center of the flower, and then sort of drawing the ink out lighter to the edges of the petals. See, I want it to be a little bit darker than I'd normally maybe go, just because we are going over these dots. But we still want to be able to see them and have this effect and see how it turns out. Maybe what I should do is when I off camera, I should repeat sort of this card with the actual perforated card and see, and then we can compare the difference. So maybe I will do that, and I will share the results on release day on the Uniko website blog as part of the release day blog hop on Sunday. So I will share those results there, I think, and we'll see if the effect is good. So I am stenciling off my card where if there was card there, I'm going quite heavy just so I'm getting that sort of blended in effect, the gradient, I suppose you would call it. So I've done that one. What I am going to do is I am going to put another little arrow here and over here, just so I know where I've placed my stencils. So when I do the perforated card, I can try and get a very similar look. And as I say, we can really sort of compare the two cards then on release day. So I'm going in with the leaves next. These stencils are designed that as long as you place them in the same position, so hence why I put that tiny arrow on my board, they will layer up perfectly. So you don't have to do them in a specific order. I just get used to doing things in a certain way. And I either start with the leaves or I start with the flowers, and then I sort of work my way into sort of the detail and the centers of the flowers. And you don't really, even though there is like a detail layer that I'll get to in a second, you don't need lots of different shades of ink. It's just about applying your ink at different intensities. So I am going quite heavy with this parsley colour for Concord and 9th, obviously. And again, I'm concentrating on the tips and sort of the stems a little bit to change the intensity of the colour of how I'm applying it. And then all you do when you come to the detail layer is use a smaller brush, and again just go a little bit more intense with the colour application. Obviously I have got them to hand. If it turns out to be not super noticeable, it is going with a darker shade. But as I say, you don't need loads of different shades of one colour to do stenciling. It's just about how you apply the colours. So this stencil is actually featured in the most recent issue of Simply Cards and Paper Crafts. I think I shared the feature, I've missed the top up there, 5 different cards using this stencil. I think I shared it on Instagram. I'm not sure if I actually shared it on the Uniko Blogspot blog, but if you follow me on Instagram, you'll find that in my feed. I think it was last week I shared it. No, it wasn't. It was the end of July. I think it was something like the 24th. Anyway, that's just by the by. So then I'm going to go in with the detail. I'm actually not, I don't know. I'm trying to decide whether to do the little flowers or not. I think I'll just do the centres of the flowers this time. As I say, we can always go back in if I change my mind. As long as you put the stencil in the same place, you can just add the details if you desire, but I think we'll just stick to the actual flowers today. So I'm just adding the yellow centres using Buttercup, and then we get to the detail there. So I'm placing it over. So I'm going to use exactly the same colours that I've used for my first layers. But all I do is I select smaller brushes to apply the ink. So we'll start with the centre of the flower. So I've got these detail brushes, and they do come in a smaller one as well. I'm just trying to see if I've got one of the smaller ones to hand in my pot, because it probably is a little bit, but yes, I have got one. So I bought these in a pack, I believe, or 2 packs, and you've got shader 0 and shader 1. These are from Waffle Flower, and they are really good for these smaller areas, and especially this tiny one, it's really good for adding intense colour. So I'm just stamping over using the brush quite forcefully, and I'll just lift, and you'll see that it's a lot more intense. So you can just check by lifting up your stencil as well. So I'm pressing and dabbing quite hard with this little blender brush to make the colour nice and intense so you can see it. Obviously it will be a little bit more subtle than if you used a darker shade of the sort of the colour you've used. But I like sort of like the subtleness of it, not the stark contrast. I mean, there are flowers in the garden that have that stark sort of detailing against the colours of the petal, but I do quite like the subtle colour. So this, I'm just using the slightly thicker blending brush, just going over each area. And as I say, I'm not too worried if it's quite subtle. You have to be a little bit careful with this detail layer, especially these bits on the flowers that I'm doing, the petal detail. They can catch a bit, especially when you're cleaning, or if you use foam blenders, for example. You can see here that one's lifted slightly because it is a really delicate stencil. But if you sort of like ink in the flow of where it's lifting up, you should it shouldn't affect the results. So we've done that, and now I'm going to go in and add the green to the leaves, and I've got a little smaller brush here. It's a little bit easier, they're a little bit further away from the petals, so you can just use a slightly bigger brush. And again, I'm just going over and over with the same colour just to make the colour more intense. These brushes are from Funky Fossil. I've had them a while, and I've even washed them a few times in the washing machine. It was a tip that Lou Collins shared, and I gave it a go. I just put them in a delicates bag on a quick wash, and it brings my brushes up. Some of the cheaper brushes have sort of there's a couple in my stash. I might have even got rid of them now. Here's one where the bristles aren't quite as soft as they were compared to this one, which is really soft. They're a bit sort of like harsher. So, but my more expensive ones, these ones that I got from, I think they were Tailored Expressions as well, they've actually been fine. I've had them since Tailored Expressions first released them, and I've washed them a few times and I've had no problem. The only one that actually did snap at the head, I think because it just got constant use, was my pink one. And you know I love my pink, so that one did actually break, but nothing lasts forever. So that is quite subtle, but I am quite pleased with how that came out. So what I'm going to do, I'll choose a sentiment at some point, add that, and off camera I will use the perforated cardstock with this stencil, and I'll show the comparison of the effects on the blog, but I might also pop in on Sunday with a video just to share all the cards and new release with you, and I'll share the results on here on YouTube as well. So that is Background Blocks Swiss Dots. I'll bring in the other cards that I just shared a moment ago. Where did I put them? Hiding over there. So this stamp will be available on Sunday at 9 AM BST, British summertime, along with all the other products that I've introduced this week here on YouTube and over on all the other social media platforms that Uniko is on. I have 2 more product introductions to share with you tomorrow. I've got 2 stencils. They're absolutely fabulous. The ladies used them last Sunday at the Uniko and Dies to Die For stamping retreat, and they really enjoyed them. So I'm looking forward to introducing those to you tomorrow. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for all the likes, support, comments. They are much appreciated. Tell your friends about Uniko. If they do come over here and shop with me and you referred them, drop me a message of their name, and if they've ordered and whatnot, I will send you a discount code, because every little helps. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.